Hello and welcome to this little mini spooky reading vlog. It's Halloween today and I have already read a few books. I haven't reviewed these books yet and that's why they didn't go in my October wrap-ups, and I'll just review them tomorrow, so they're in November's. But these are the books that were sort of that in-between period, and I read a few, so we're just going to have a very mini vlog today. But let me just let you know what I have read. So I started with No Season But the Summer. The cover caught my eye, and the fact that it was a Persephone and Hades retelling. I am always going to be a sucker for that, even though it lets me down the most out of every trope and that I read. I've yet to find a fantastic Hades and Persephone retelling, and this is no exception to the rule. I did end up giving this a 3.25, and that's all for the writing. That is all for the writing. I loved the writing style. It was one of those books where you just, every sentence hits and every thing is just written in a way that gives it meaning and encapsulates what you otherwise couldn't put into words. So I loved the writing. It was told from Persephone and Demeter's point of view, so her mother. I would have loved to have Hades' point of view in this, but I know this was mostly about the relationship between Persephone and her mother, mostly overall, even though it was also about her relationship with Hades. The issues that I had in this book was the characters were all unlikable. They were all so unlikable. There was also infidelity on Persephone's part in this that just did not make sense to me. Even with this iteration of her character, it didn't make sense why she would do that. But and the plot of it overall was just very weird. They are gods, but they're also very mundane, and it was just, it was such an odd book. It's a very odd book, very so slow paced, and it doesn't have the most satisfying ending. So I'm just warning you, but the writing, I'll see if this author's done other stuff. Love the writing. And then I read Two Twisted Crowns, which is the sequel to One Dark Window. This is a duology. This was a final book. Obviously, I can't go into the detail of the plot in this because it will spoil it, but I gave this 4.5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was very well done. There is a great ending. If you really love Elspeth, the character from the first book, she ain't really in this. She's a bit MIA. So this one really mostly is about the love story between Elm and Ione. And I'm not mad about that. I did enjoy their romance. You've got a little bit with the Nightmare and Raven in it. Elspeth is just not there. She's just not there. But it was very interesting. I like this world setup that has almost like tarot cards, magical tarot cards. There's cards that contain certain powers. When you use them, you've got these powers, but they come at a price. And like I said, it's a sequel, so I don't want to say much about it, but I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion to a series. I will definitely read this author's future works. And then I read the book Bride Test, because I needed an audiobook, and I ended up listening to this all in one day. I literally lay in my bed at night with my eyes closed in the dark just so I could finish it. I didn't want to wait until the next day. It was addictive in that way. So I am giving it 4.5 stars. This is a book where you have a young mother in Vietnam, and she's impoverished, and she ends up meeting another Vietnamese woman from America who is looking for a wife for her son, and she ends up choosing her as a bride, a mail order bride. So if you want to, pretty much. So she ends up leaving her daughter, her grandmother and her mother, and going to America. So the American Vietnamese mother has given this woman 3 months to make her son fall in love with her. So the son is neurodivergent coded and has experienced a lot of trauma and loss and grief. So this book is quite heavy. This isn't a light, fluffy romance at all. But basically, she ends up living with him for the 3 months, and obviously their relationship develops, but there are issues because of his, I guess, emotional capability in terms of how much he can express that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I found it interesting. I liked the characters. The biggest issue I had with this was the deception. If you have a child, that is something you need to disclose to someone that you are starting an intimate relationship with. I really don't like dishonesty. I cannot stand it. And so because I understand why she didn't want to tell him or the mother, oh, I also have a child. I get it. She's trying to make a better future for her child, and that involves, I guess, lying to these people to get what she needs to provide for her daughter. But I can't really root for someone that's actively keeping a secret from the person that they love. So there was that. I guess I did have to put that aside, and I did give it 4.5 stars. So I did really like it, but that was a big thing. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm you got to come clean. I get it. You want someone to fall in love with you, and then you tell them, oh, by the way, I got a kid. I got a 6-year-old kid. So it's not the best though. It's not the best, but I did enjoy it overall. And it was fine to listen to. So I struggle with a lot of audiobooks. I just stopped listening to them because I don't stay engaged, whereas this one kept me engaged. I think I do better with romance books as audiobooks or nonfiction. I think they're the two genres that work the best for me, or maybe, I'm guessing maybe a thriller would work too, but fantasy, for instance, I cannot do audiobook because I zone out and there's too much information I need to absorb, and I don't learn well from this. I learn from reading visually. So yeah, there's certain genres that do better, and this one did really well as an audiobook. And then the last book that I read in this little interim was Mistletoe for Motive. I think that's what it was called. I picked this up because I read Two Wrongs Make a Right by this author and love that. Was this written by the same person? Like, no way this was written by the same person. I know that this book was written a year before Two Wrongs Make a Right, but man, wow, because the writing in this, I'm sorry to say, just very amateur. Let me tell you what I did like about the book. I love that the main female character was neurodivergent and demisexual. As a demi and also a neurodivergent person, I especially trying to find more romantic books with demisexuals in them. And so I felt like this one was a pretty, accurate representation. I still feel like they jumped from relationship into sex very, very quickly. But yeah, it's supposed to be a very slow burn romance between two people that severely dislike each other. And once again, I don't know how you can be this rude to someone you work with. So both of these two work in a bookstore and are book nerds. Another thing I really loved. I love that angle, but they're so bloody rude to each other. Just be professionals. I don't understand this. So it just felt very unbelievable. And a lot of this book felt unbelievable. And the writing itself too, not the best, not that good. I didn't love it. Like I'm giving it 3 stars because it was okay. Like I didn't hate it, but yeah, it definitely wasn't for me. And it's just very weird considering I like this author's other books so much. So I might have to check out their later books, not go through their backlist, I think, going forward. Otherwise, those were all of the books that I read in this little brief time. I'd say Two Twisted Crowns was my favorite, even though that was the same rating as The Bride Test. I liked Two Twisted Crowns a bit more. I know it's very weird, it's like, but they're rated the same, but I just liked it more. So that was fantastic. And I love duologies, to be honest. I think that's great. Like I'm done now, I can move on and I'm very satisfied. But that's everything. I hope you have a very spooky day. Until next time, stay wild, Star Child.